So this is my oral response from my B14 Assess and Reflect planning process for writing. The first question is, were you more confident in your writing once you knew the direction your story was going to take? I followed and didn't follow the planning process of writing out the story planner that was provided. I generally take the route of writing out a story or a basic storyline and then going from there, creating the characters beforehand, all those kinds of things is actually harder for me than doing it the opposite way of using the planner to really as a fill-in and to add on. So filling in as in I can use that as a basis and add more fluff into the storyline when I'm typing it all out, and an add-on in the same way as if I've forgotten to make a sentence or the protagonist, antagonist, one of those more dominant, then I'll go back and fix that. The next question is, were you able to focus on more specific parts of the story, like developing a strong climax and following action because you weren't distracted by other elements of the story? I think that I was able to create a strong climax where Serenity was about to be taken away when her friend had already been rescued, or was in the process of being rescued. And I think the following action was pretty stable, and I wasn't distracted while writing those two areas of the story. I think that the story flowed pretty well in itself. Third question is, how effective was it for you to make a list of characteristics for your protagonist? I found it interesting, actually. I found it kind of hard to actually do it beforehand, so I went through and wrote the character in the story, Serenity, and then I took aspects like her dialogue and her thoughts. I took those two things and did it afterwards and filled in the blanks of my planner, while for her actions and how she looked, I actually did beforehand, because as you'll see at the end of the story, it gives a list of what the names of all the characters mean, and Serenity means, I will actually pull it up. Serenity actually means peaceful disposition. So beforehand I already knew that I was going to integrate words like calmness or keeping her cool, things like that would actually affect the story. So things like that, yeah, I went beforehand and afterwards in making a list of characteristics for my protagonist. And the second part of that question is, do you feel your character was more developed by adding aspects of them as the story continues, rather than only at the beginning? I think I answered that. I did at the as the story went on, not at the beginning. Was it difficult or easy to create dialogue with action? Several examples of that were provided in the readings, in this section, and in the instruction. Were you able to easily continue with that type of information in your own writing, or was it challenging? I found it very easy. The more the story went on, I believe the easier it got, and yeah, I found it very easy. In your own writing, did you look back to see how some of the other authors of the short stories in this section did things? I did not. I read a fair bit, and not an avid reader, but I do enjoy a good book every once in a while on a rainy day, which probably isn't appropriate for Saskatchewan. But I did not look back, unfortunately. I didn't feel that I needed to, and not in a cocky way, but I did not feel that I needed to. I remember different ways people converse and how I really took it for how I would converse with someone, putting myself in their shoes. Changing speakers of dialogue, starting new paragraphs of narrative, etc. Did you use the stories as a source or guide for your own writing? Again, for changing speakers of dialogue, I just placed myself in their shoes, and that's how I wrote. What in particular was your focus in this piece of writing? What one thing was the most important to get right, and why? My focus was to bring awareness to, first of all, obedience to your parents. You know, she kind of told the guy what they were, the waiter, Serenity told the waiter of what they were doing while in Rotterdam, which there's nothing wrong in and of itself with that, but he was this perfect stranger. And really to bring awareness, first obedience, like I said, but also to safety while traveling. Lots of young girls, being in my second grade 12 year, I guess I could say, tend to go off on a trip after grade 12 to celebrate, and I just wanted to show that it can be dangerous and to watch out for yourself. And the most important thing to get right and why. I really wanted to get the names of all the characters right to fit into the story. Each character has a specific name which describes their own tasks and how they act, their characteristics, so on and so forth, and that's one thing I really wanted to implement into the story. Last question is to describe my editing process. What steps did you take in ensuring your story was the best version it could be? I looked over punctuation. I wanted to get facts right about proximity between Amsterdam, Rotterdam, the Netherlands, making sure that there's some language in the story itself that is actually in Dutch, which is what they speak in the Netherlands. And yeah, I really wanted to make it feel authentic. The windmill, the story is actually entitled The Windmill, and being entitled that, windmills are a huge lifestyle. They really are. It's a way of life, running a farm, to promote electricity, running water. Windmills are a huge source of energy in the Netherlands, and so bringing that full circle with including Rotterdam, including Amsterdam, the Netherlands, talking about Dutch, how the innkeeper speaks in Dutch, all those things, I really wanted to make the story feel authentic, make sure punctuation was good, and yeah, that's really what I wanted to create with this story, The Windmill, and I hope you enjoy.